"He's nothing to us now, Ben. Just let him rot." That's what my sister Lily said, while my father, bruised, dehydrated, and dumped like garbage, lay half-conscious on a Texas highway in 100-degree heat. And the person who threw him out of the house was her husband. But what shattered me most wasn't her cruelty. It was the moment I found Dad, slumped in a motel chair, lips cracked, face swollen, and he still whispered, "Don't blame Lily. She's just stressed." The same man who once told me I was too rebellious to belong now defended the people who nearly killed him. A daughter ignored, a father broken, a sister worshipped like a god. But beneath their perfect life, there was a camera. And someone had been watching. The house that erased me was about to collapse. Funny how one threat can spark a wildfire they can't control. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, don't scroll away. And if your heart's already breaking for that daughter who flew 1,500 miles just to find the truth, go ahead, drop me a comment. I feel you. My name is Mia Carter. I was 32 years old, sitting cross-legged on the second-hand couch in my cramped New York apartment, sipping a lukewarm latte that had already gone flat. The blinds were half closed against the late morning sun, and the hum of traffic below floated through the dusty windows like background noise I had long since stopped hearing. It was 9:15 a.m., an ordinary Tuesday, until my phone began buzzing across the counter, rattling against the chipped ceramic tile. At first I didn't move. I just stared at it. The glowing screen pulsed like a flare in the half-light. Unknown number, Texas area code. My chest tightened, though I didn't know why. I told myself not to answer, that nothing good ever came out of Texas for me. The latte cooled in my hand, forgotten, as the buzzing kept drilling into the silence of the room. I finally reached over and swiped. "Hello?" My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The man on the other end identified himself as an officer with the Dallas Police Department. His tone was clipped, professional, but there was something strained underneath, something human. He asked if I was the daughter of Harold Carter, my father. The moment I heard Dad's name, the air in the room seemed to shrink. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "Your father was found this morning," the officer said. "He was wandering along Highway 45, about 15 miles outside Dallas. He's dehydrated, bruised, clothes torn. He refused medical treatment, but—" The man hesitated, like he had to force the words out. "He kept saying your name, over and over. Mia knows what to do." For a second, I thought I had misheard. My father hadn't spoken my name in 8 years, not since the day I boarded a plane to New York and swore I'd never look back. 8 years of silence, except for the occasional holiday card Lily sent with her perfectly scripted updates about Dad's health, about her booming real estate empire, about how well everything was going without me. Now my father was bruised and broken on a Texas highway, whispering for me. Is he safe?" My voice cracked, betraying the panic I was trying to hold back. "He's stable, but he refused hospital admission," the officer replied. "Said he didn't want to be a burden. Ma'am, he needs someone to look after him." I sank deeper into the couch cushions, a rush of memories I had fought to bury slamming back all at once. Lily's smug smile at my college send-off, Dad's proud arm around her shoulders while my achievements barely earned a nod. Lily, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. And me, the rebel, the one Dad said was too headstrong for her own good. Why now? Why call me? The officer cleared his throat. "He kept saying you'd know what to do." I wanted to laugh, but the sound died in my throat. Me? The daughter he spent years dismissing? The one who was never enough? The irony sliced deeper than any wound. I glanced around my apartment. The tiny kitchen sink still held last night's dishes. A stack of case files sat open on the table, the neat columns of legal text blurring as my vision swam. This life I had built, hard-won, distant, safe, suddenly felt flimsy, fragile, like it could collapse with the weight of that one phone call. I set the latte down, my hand shaking so badly the cup rattled against the table. 8 years ago, I had promised myself I would never return. I had sworn I was done with Texas, with Dad, with the endless comparisons to Lily, but the sound of the officer's voice, the image of my father stumbling half-delirious under that sun-scorched sky, tore through every wall I had built. "What exactly happened?" I asked. The officer exhaled, almost in relief that I hadn't hung up. We got a call from a passing driver, said there was an older man stumbling along the shoulder. When we arrived, he resisted help, kept insisting he just fell. But his injuries, bruises on his arms, cuts on his face, it doesn't look like a simple fall. When we asked where he lived, he got confused. When we pressed, he said your sister Lily would explain. Then he whispered your name again. The mention of Lily sent a cold wave rushing through me. Of course, Lily, the perfect daughter. Lily, the polished business mogul with the gleaming house and the flawless reputation, the one Dad always defended. If he had her, why would he ever need me? I pinched the bridge of my nose, trying to steady my thoughts. Where is he now? He's at a local station for now, cooling off in the air conditioning. We can't hold him long if he refuses treatment. We just thought you should know. Should know. As if that made sense. As if knowing could undo the years, the scars, the distance. I hung up and sat in silence, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly loud in the stillness. My keys glinted on the counter, catching a sliver of morning light that slipped through the blinds. I stared at them, my pulse hammering in my throat. If Lily was the golden child, if Dad had defended her all these years, then why was he abandoned on the side of a highway? Why call for me now? The questions spiraled, clawing at me. My stomach knotted so tight it felt hard to breathe. 8 years ago, I had left to escape them, to escape him. But that call felt like the past clawing me back, dragging me toward answers I wasn't ready to face. I rose slowly, my body heavy but my mind racing. I slid the keys into my hand, feeling their sharp metal edges bite against my skin. Every instinct screamed to stay put, to keep the life I had fought so hard for. But another voice, small, stubborn, insistent, said I couldn't ignore this. I grabbed my phone again, thumb hovering over the airline app. My reflection stared back at me in the dark glass. Tired eyes, clenched jaw, a face caught between dread and duty. Curiosity and fear surged together in my chest. What had really happened to Dad? Why now, after all these years? With a shaky breath, I began booking a flight to Dallas. The decision was made before I could stop myself. One moment, I was staring at my phone, debating if I should really go back, and the next I was running through JFK with my boarding pass clenched so tightly in my hand that it crumpled into a damp ball. My breath came short, uneven, not just from the sprint, but from the weight of what I was walking back into. People pressed in on all sides, families arguing over suitcases, children tugging at parents, the shrill beep of security scanners. The air smelled faintly of coffee and jet fuel, and beneath it all was my own anxiety, sour and heavy. I shoved my things into the plastic bin at security, shoes half untied, laptop slipping. The TSA agent gave me that look, half bored, half annoyed, but I barely noticed. My thoughts were already in Texas, already on that deserted highway where my father had stumbled, whispering my name like it was the last rope he could hold. Why me? Why now? By the time I sank into the hard plastic seat at the gate, my pulse was still pounding. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching a plane crawl across the runway in the distance. New York stretched behind me, my apartment, my cases, the life I had built from scratch. All of it suddenly felt fragile, like paper that could tear with one wrong move. The boarding call jolted me back. I filed in with the crowd, my carry-on bumping my leg, the smell of recycled air hitting me as I stepped into the narrow cabin. The plane was already too warm, filled with the low buzz of chatter and the distant whine of the engines. I slid into my cramped seat by the window, tray table sticky with some forgotten spill. My knees brushed the seat in front of me. This was my cage for the next few hours, carrying me closer and closer to a past I had sworn off. I closed my eyes, but instead of calm, memories surged. Dad in the living room, hammer in hand, hanging yet another of Lily's real estate awards on the wall. The gold frames caught the light, gleaming like trophies in a shrine. My certificates, debate team wins, a scholarship letter, sat in a dusty folder on the shelf, barely glanced at. "Your sister has real business sense," Dad used to say, clapping Lily on the shoulder. "Not like you, Mia. You've always been a little too rebellious." Rebellious. The word had stung then, and it still did. I had chosen law not to rebel but to fight, to prove I could stand on my own. But to him, it was never enough. Lily was the perfect one. Lily was safe. I was the storm. I pulled out my phone, needing a distraction, and there it was. An old thread buried deep in my messages. A text from Lily, sent years ago, after one of our rare attempts at civility. Her words glared back at me on the tiny screen. "Stay out of family business. Family business." Even then, she had made it sound like a kingdom she ruled, and I was the exile who didn't belong. My stomach twisted. Was this what Dad's breakdown was about? Some twisted extension of her business? As if to answer, a notification blinked on my cloud storage. An old draft, half hidden in the clutter of files I never checked. My thumb hovered, then tapped. It was a letter. From Dad. The words were short, almost cryptic. "Mia, there are assets you don't know about. Things Lily can't touch. I'll explain when the time is right." I froze, staring at the glow of the screen. Assets? Hidden from Lily? My father had barely trusted me with his time, let alone his secrets. Why would he send me this? And why bury it where I might never have found it? The engines roared, the plane shuddered as we lifted into the sky, but my mind wasn't on the ground falling away beneath us. It was back in Texas, circling those words like vultures. Assets you don't know about. What was he hiding? Money? Property? Evidence? The possibilities churned, each darker than the last. I shifted in my seat, trying to stretch my legs, but the cabin felt even smaller now, the air stale and tight. The drone of the engine pressed in on my ears, like a warning I couldn't escape. I pressed my phone against my chest, as if clutching the letter could keep me from unraveling. Outside the window, clouds swallowed the sun, leaving only gray. Each mile to Texas felt like diving into a storm I had dodged for years. A storm made of Lily's smirk, Dad's dismissals, secrets that had been hidden in plain sight. I couldn't stop asking myself the same question, over and over. If Lily had it all, Dad's praise, the family business, the empire she built on his approval, then why had she warned me away? What was she afraid I might find? The flight stretched on in tense silence. I didn't read, didn't sleep. I only replayed the officer's words in my head. Dad's battered body on the highway, his whisper of my name. The cryptic letter, the text, the memories. Puzzle pieces I couldn't yet fit together. By the time the plane descended, the Texas sky had already slipped into dusk. Out the window, the horizon glowed faintly orange, bleeding into shadows. The sight sent a shiver down my spine. This was it, the point of no return. As the wheels hit the runway with a jolt, I gripped the armrest until my knuckles went white. Curiosity battled dread inside me, twisting tighter with each breath. Whatever waited in Dallas, I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't find peace until I uncovered the truth. The Texas heat didn't just press down, it smothered, the kind of heat that clung to your skin and stole the air from your lungs. As I steered the rental car along the barren stretch of highway outside Dallas, the sun hung low, molten orange, spilling light that shimmered on the asphalt like liquid fire. My tires crunched against gravel as I pulled off to the shoulder, red dust spiraling up in a haze around me. My throat felt dry, my stomach clenched with dread. And then I saw him, my father. He was hunched at the edge of the road, a bent silhouette against the endless horizon. His shoulders sagged, his spine curved, his clothes torn and caked with dust. He looked so small, so unlike the man who had once filled a room with his booming opinions. His skin was raw from the sun, his cheeks hollow, sweat tracing dirty lines down his neck. When his glassy eyes flicked toward me, I caught something I wasn't ready for. Recognition, yes, but laced with something darker. Shame. "Dad!" My voice broke as I shoved the door open, the hot air rushing in, thick with the scent of asphalt and scorched earth. I ran toward him, my shoes sinking into the soft gravel, dust swirling around my ankles. His lips cracked open. You shouldn't be here." The words rasped out like brittle paper tearing, his voice weak and splintered. Up close, he looked even worse. His hands trembled at his sides, veins stark against papery skin. And the bruises. God, the bruises. Purple and black stains bloomed across his arms and ribs, dark lines slashing his temple, each mark searing into me like ink stains that would never wash away. This wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't a stumble. This was violence. A low engine rumble reminded me we weren't alone. I turned to see the patrol car idling a few yards away, its lights flashing faintly in the heat haze. The officer who had called me stepped out, hat low, sweat dripping down his collar. He walked toward us with slow, deliberate steps, his boots grinding the gravel. "When we found him," the officer said, his tone steady but carrying something weighted underneath, "he told us your sister and her husband shoved him out after a fight. That's what he said." The words cut sharper than the heat. Lily and Ben. My chest tightened, my pulse drumming in my ears. I snapped my gaze back to Dad. "Is that true?" He flinched, like my question had struck him harder than a slap. His throat bobbed, his lips trembled. "No," he croaked, coughing through the word. "No, Mia. Just fell. That's it. Just fell." He tried to laugh, but the sound cracked halfway through, hollow and false. His eyes darted away, fixing on the horizon, as if the desert itself could swallow the truth for him. But the bruises screamed louder than his words. "Dad," I said softly, kneeling slightly to catch his gaze, "that doesn't look like a fall." His jaw clenched, the lines around his mouth deepening into trenches. "You're overthinking it. I just slipped. Don't make this bigger than it is." The officer shifted, looking at me with a mix of sympathy and discomfort. His voice dropped lower, almost apologetic. "That's not what he said before. I figured you should know." The words sank like stones in my gut. My father was lying. And for who? For Lily? For Ben? After all these years of siding with her, of choosing her over me, he was still protecting her, even with bruises painting his body like evidence he refused to claim. He tried to stand taller, his pride forcing him to straighten, but his knees buckled. I lunged forward instinctively, catching him before he collapsed. His bones were sharp beneath my grip, brittle as twigs. He sagged against me, the heat radiating off him, the smell of sweat and dust clinging to his clothes. For a moment I held him there, fury and sorrow twisting together until I couldn't separate one from the other. He looked up at me, eyes rimmed red, voice barely a whisper. "Don't push it, Mia. Just let it go. Let it go." The words hit harder than the sun ever could. He had said that same phrase my whole life. Let it go when Lily's awards filled the walls and mine sat ignored. Let it go when Lily dismissed me, when he defended her again and again. Let it go until it became the anthem of my childhood. And now, after everything, after I found him broken on the side of a highway, he was still asking me to do the same. I wanted to scream, to demand why Lily was worth more than the truth, why her reputation mattered more than his own dignity, more than me. But the desert was wide and silent, swallowing every sound but the pounding of my heart. So I swallowed the scream. I pressed my lips into a thin line and nodded like I believed him. "Come on," I said quietly. "Let's get you out of the heat." At first he muttered excuses, insisting he could walk it off, but his body betrayed him. His legs wobbled, and he leaned heavier into me as I guided him forward. Dust rose in little clouds with every step, sticking to our skin, choking the air. The officer gave me a nod, half warning, half sympathy, before returning to his car. He didn't press further, didn't interfere. Maybe he knew that what I was walking into wasn't something the law could fix. I opened the passenger door of my rental, wincing as a blast of hot air rushed out. "Easy," I whispered, easing him down into the seat. He sank back, eyes fluttering closed, his head resting against the window. I buckled the seatbelt across his chest, the stale smell of sweat and dust filling the confined space. Even with his eyes shut, the lie was etched across his face. He thought silence would protect Lily, protect Ben, maybe protect himself. But it only deepened the fracture between us, a crack that widened with every unspoken truth. Sliding into the driver's seat, I wrapped my hands around the wheel. My knuckles whitened as the road stretched ahead, shimmering in the last burn of daylight. My chest heaved, torn between anger and heartbreak. He looked so small beside me, but what broke me wasn't his fragility. It was the lie in his eyes. Why was he covering for them? What kind of hold did Lily and Ben still have on him? The engine hummed as I pulled away from the shoulder. The desert bled from gold to bruised purple, the horizon collapsing into night. Each mile we drove weighed heavier, pressing down until my resolve hardened like stone. If he wouldn't give me the truth, I'd dig it out myself. By the time the neon glow of a rundown motel flickered against the darkening sky, my decision was carved into me. I wasn't just here to help him. I was here to uncover what Lily had done, and why my father would rather shatter himself in silence than speak her name aloud. The motel room smelled like old smoke and burnt coffee, the kind of stench that seeped into the walls years ago and never left. A flickering fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead, cutting the shadows into sharp, restless angles. The small fan rattled in the corner, pushing hot air that smelled faintly of mildew. I sat on the edge of the sagging bed, the thin mattress groaning under my weight, while my father slumped in a chair by the window, his head tilted down, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. I dipped a rag into lukewarm water from the cracked bathroom sink and wrung it out, my fingers trembling. When I pressed the cloth to the cut on his temple, he flinched, though he didn't make a sound. His silence pressed harder on me than his bruises. I worked carefully, wiping the streaks of dried blood, trying to see through them, trying to find the man I used to know. But each bruise I uncovered felt like another secret he was burying. "Hold still," I whispered. He gave the faintest nod, his eyes never lifting. The motel's cracked mirror hung on the wall across from us, its reflection jagged where the glass had splintered. In that broken surface I saw the two of us, me hunched over, jaw clenched, him shrunken and pale, a shadow of the father who once stood so tall. The image burned into me. Then his phone buzzed. The vibration rattled against the chipped nightstand, startling both of us. He reached for it quickly, too quickly, like a child caught sneaking something forbidden. But his hand shook, and the phone slipped, clattering onto the carpet at my feet. I bent to pick it up. The screen glowed with a missed call and a voicemail. One word on the screen made my stomach clench. "Ben." "Don't," Dad murmured, his voice urgent but weak. He reached out, but his hand stopped short, hovering in the air between us, as if even he didn't have the strength to finish the motion. I didn't listen. I pressed play. Ben's voice filled the room, sharp and cutting, carried through tinny speakers but hitting me like a slap. "You're embarrassing us, old man. No one'll find you if you keep this up." The words hung in the air, heavy, poisonous. My stomach dropped, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a fall. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. I glanced at Dad, his eyes closed, his face crumpling as if he could shut out the sound by sheer will. My hands shook around the phone. "So it's true," I whispered, the words trembling out of me. "They've been doing this to you." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. Shame carved deep lines across his face. He finally muttered, "They're just stressed. They didn't mean it?" My voice rose, sharp, cracking the stale air. "That wasn't stress, Dad. That was a threat. That was cruelty, practiced and rehearsed." I shoved the phone toward him, though he wouldn't look at it. "How long has this been going on?" He didn't answer. His silence said enough. That voice message wasn't new. It wasn't a one-time slip of anger. It was routine. The ease in Ben's tone, the casual way he delivered the threat. It was too smooth, too comfortable. He had said things like this before, probably many times. My chest felt hollow, my rage cold, sinking into me like ice. I remembered Mom's funeral, the way Lily clung to Dad's arm like she was protecting him, while I stood off to the side, excluded. I remembered how quickly she took over the house, the finances, his choices. And now I saw it clearly. She and Ben weren't protecting him. They were draining him, using him, breaking him. That voice wasn't just cruel, I said, more to myself than to him. It was practiced, like they'd done it before, like they expected you to cave. The fan rattled louder, filling the silence that stretched between us. I wanted him to deny it, to fight back, to finally call them what they were. But he just sat there, eyes down, lips pressed tight, as if loyalty to Lily mattered more than his own bruised body. My anger hardened into resolve. If he wouldn't fight for himself, I would. I stood, pacing the cramped room, my shoes scuffing against the stained carpet. My thoughts spun in 1,000 directions. The bruises, the voicemail, the years of favoritism and silence. How deep did this go? How much had they taken from him since Mom died? Property, money, his dignity? I turned back to him, his figure small and slumped in that battered chair. "You can keep lying for them, Dad," I said, my voice steady now, colder. "But I heard it. I know what they're doing to you, and I'm not letting it go." He didn't look at me. He just rubbed at the edge of the armrest with his thumb, small circles over the worn wood, but in the fractured mirror I saw his reflection, eyes glistening, lips pressed thin. That was his answer. I pulled the phone from the nightstand and slipped it into my pocket. His head lifted slightly, but he didn't argue. Maybe part of him wanted me to keep it, to carry the truth he couldn't say aloud. As the night deepened outside, neon light from the motel sign bled through the grimy blinds, painting the room in sickly pink shadows. I sat back down, my mind racing, my fury colder now, sharper. How long had this gone on? How many times had Ben left messages like that? How many times had Lily stood by, letting it happen, maybe even encouraging it? The questions circled me like vultures, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done watching my father crumble under their hands. By the time I lay back on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling's water stains, my vow was clear. I would confront them. I would drag their secrets into the light whether my father wanted me to or not. The motel room was suffocating by morning. The air smelled stale, like cigarettes had been smoked in secret for years, and the blinds hung half-crooked, letting in strips of pale dawn that cut across the floor like blades. A styrofoam cup sat in my father's trembling hands, its cheap lid rattling as if his bones themselves were shivering. He stared into the weak swirl of motel coffee as if it held the answer to everything. I sat across from him, elbows braced on my knees, watching the way his fingers twitched against the cup. My voice came out lower than I intended, but sharp. "Dad, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign the house over to Lily, the accounts too?" He flinched, the question landing heavy. His eyes stayed locked on the styrofoam cup, watching the steam fade. Finally, he nodded, just once. "After your mother passed? I couldn't keep up. Bills, repairs, taxes. It was too much. Lily said she'd handle it." His voice was ragged, the words slow, like they weighed more than he could carry. My stomach tightened. I had known Lily was involved, but hearing him admit it made my skin crawl. "So you just handed everything to her? No second thoughts? No questions?" He lifted his gaze, and for a second I thought I saw regret there, but then he shook his head gently. "She was helping, Mia. She stepped up when I couldn't. You were busy with law school. She was here." The words sliced through me. Always the same excuse. She was here. She was the one he trusted, not me, never me. I leaned forward, my voice breaking. "Dad, she's not helping you. She's taking from you. Can't you see that?" He pressed his lips together, eyes narrowing slightly. "Lily's just stressed with work. You know how she is, always pushing herself. Don't turn this into something ugly." There it was again, that automatic defense, that reflex that had shadowed every year of my life. I felt the sting in my chest, the echo of all the times my accomplishments were brushed aside while Lily's were framed on the wall. "Stressed?" I snapped. "She and Ben threw you out on a highway. I found you bruised and bleeding, and you're telling me she's stressed?" His shoulders hunched as if my words were blows. He muttered, almost pleading, "Don't push it, Mia. Please. She didn't mean it that way." Every excuse for her was another door slamming in my face. I could feel the heat rising behind my eyes, the old ache of being the daughter he couldn't see, no matter how hard I fought. Silence stretched between us, the fan whirred faintly above, rattling like it might fall from the ceiling. I wanted to shake him, to force the truth out of him. Instead, I sat frozen, my hands digging into my knees, nails pressing crescent moons into my skin. Then he whispered it, barely audible, his voice caught between confession and warning. "Don't let them take it all." The words rooted me to the spot. My breath caught. "What do you mean, take it all?" His hand tightened around the cup, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim. He shook his head, his gaze darting toward the blinds as if someone might be listening. "Just don't let them. They already have enough." My pulse quickened. "Dad, what are you talking about? What else is there?" He hesitated, then leaned forward, lowering his voice to a whisper that sent chills crawling up my spine. "There's a camera in the house." For a second, I thought I misheard. "A camera?" He nodded faintly, his eyes flicking up to mine before retreating again. "It sees things, records things. I don't know if Lily knows. Maybe she does. Maybe that's why she gets so angry." My mind spun. A camera, in the house. Hidden evidence? Proof? Or just another layer of paranoia? I couldn't tell. But the way he said it, like a secret too dangerous to hold, made every nerve in my body spark with suspicion. I tried to steady my voice. Who put it there? You? His lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any words. I sat back, staring at him. His defense of Lily still rang in my ears, scraping old wounds raw. But now there was something else, something larger pressing down on us. If there really was a camera in that house, then the lies, the bruises, the threats, they might all be there, waiting. I looked at him, slumped and small under the harsh motel light, and I felt frustration boil inside me. Why was he still protecting her? What else was he hiding from me? I clenched my fists, fighting to steady the storm rising in me. He wasn't going to give me answers, not now, maybe not ever, but I knew where I would find them. I rose from the chair, pacing once before stopping at the cracked blinds, peering out at the parking lot below. Neon light flickered on the old sign, buzzing faintly against the early morning quiet. My reflection stared back at me in the window, jaw tight, eyes dark with determination. If there was a camera in that house, I was going to find it. And when I did, the truth would finally stop hiding in shadows. The drive back to the old house was like driving into the belly of something I thought I had escaped. The Texas heat pressed against the windshield, thick and suffocating, and the road shimmered like it was melting away. My hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, knuckles pale, as if the car itself might try to turn back unless I forced it forward. Every mile was a memory I had buried. Mom's laughter echoing in the kitchen, Dad sitting proudly with Lily at family dinners while I hovered like an afterthought. When I finally turned into the driveway, the house loomed ahead, familiar yet hostile. The paint on the siding had faded, but the yard was pristine, trimmed within an inch of its life. A false picture of order, like Lily herself. I stepped out, the humid air clinging to my skin, and for a moment I just stared at the front door, pulse quickening. Inside, the cool air smelled faintly of lemon polish and something artificial, like staged perfection. The hum of the AC filled the silence. Then my eyes landed on the wall. A digital photo frame glowed in the dim hallway, sliding through smiling images of Lily, Ben, and Sophie. Lily with a champagne glass, Ben with his arm around her, Sophie grinning in graduation robes, frame after frame, their lives playing like a curated commercial. But me? I was gone, erased. Not one photo of me remained, though I knew there had been dozens once. College graduation, Mom's birthday dinners, vacations. My absence was glaring, a deliberate void. The screen flickered, changing images, the glow casting shadows across the hallway that seemed to reach for me. My chest tightened. It felt like the wall itself was mocking me. "Mia?" I turned at the sound of her voice. Lily stood in the doorway to the living room, arms crossed, her smirk sharp enough to cut glass. She looked polished, perfect as always, hair pinned, lipstick flawless, not a wrinkle in sight. "Back to play hero, huh?" she said, her tone dripping with disdain. I held her gaze, refusing to let her see the sting her words caused. "I came to see Dad's house." "Our house," she corrected smoothly. Her eyes flicked over me, assessing, dismissing. "You shouldn't have come back. You've got no idea what's going on here." My stomach churned. "Then tell me." Her smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "It's family business, Mia. Stay out of it." The words echoed the old text I'd found on the plane, the one she had sent years ago. My chest tightened as anger surged. I wanted to throw the voicemail in her face, to scream that I knew what she and Ben had been doing to Dad. But the truth stuck in my throat. Not yet. Not until I had proof. I brushed past her, walking deeper into the house. Her perfume lingered in the air, sweet, heavy, cloying. My eyes scanned the room, every detail both familiar and foreign. The family photos that remained showed a perfect life I wasn't part of. My absence rang louder than if they had hung a sign that said I didn't exist. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. The vibration startled me. I pulled it out, the screen glowing with an unknown number. A single text message stared back. "Stop digging." The words burned into my eyes. My skin prickled, heat flushing across me even in the chill of the air conditioning. My gaze flicked around the room. The blinds were drawn, but I felt exposed, like eyes were on me. I tightened my grip on the phone, my pulse racing. Who sent this? Lily, Ben, or someone else entirely? I shoved the phone back into my pocket and forced myself to keep moving. The house creaked softly under my steps, each sound magnified in the silence. I found myself drawn toward Dad's old study, the one room that had always smelled of paper and dust, his retreat from the noise of the house. The door groaned when I pushed it open. Inside, the air was musty, heavy with disuse. The desk sat in the corner, the same one where I used to watch him scribble notes late into the night. On top of it, half hidden beneath a pile of papers, was a small locked box. Its metal surface was scratched, the lock old but stubborn. I pulled it free, setting it down on the desk. My hands trembled slightly as I tried the lid, but it wouldn't budge. The lock held. I tilted the box, listening. Something shifted inside, a faint shuffle of papers. I spotted an envelope through a crack, aged, yellowed. I tugged, but it wouldn't slip through. On the top, written faintly in Dad's handwriting, one word stared back at me. Will. My breath caught. A will. I stared at the box, my heart thudding. Why was it hidden here, locked away? What did it say that Lily didn't want anyone to see? Had she tampered with it? Manipulated Dad into rewriting it? The questions tangled in my mind, each more suffocating than the last. I glanced over my shoulder, the uneasy sense of being watched intensifying. The blinds rattled faintly, though no wind blew. My reflection in the darkened glass looked back at me, pale and tense. The house felt like a trap, waiting to snap shut. I shoved the box into my bag, the metal cold against my arm. My phone buzzed again, another notification flashing across the screen, but I didn't look this time. Whoever was trying to scare me wouldn't get the satisfaction. As I stepped back into the hallway, Lily's voice floated from the kitchen, sharp and casual, as if she hadn't just sliced me open moments earlier. Don't make trouble you can't handle, Mia. I didn't answer. My jaw locked as I strode toward the front door. Every nerve in my body screamed paranoia. Who had sent that message? Who was watching me? Was Lily bluffing, or was someone else pulling strings? The box weighed heavy in my bag, but heavier still was the certainty forming inside me. If this will held secrets, I was going to uncover them. And whatever I found, it was going to break this family open. The next morning, the air already felt heavy, thick with the kind of heat that seeps into your skin and stays there. I drove past the edge of the neighborhood, my hands tight on the wheel, the locked box sitting on the passenger seat like it weighed 100 pounds. My thoughts kept circling back to Dad's whisper about a camera, the anonymous text telling me to stop digging, and Lily's smirk when she told me I didn't belong. Every detail wrapped around me like a vice. I pulled up to a small house 2 doors down from Dad's. Mrs. Ramirez had lived there for as long as I could remember. She used to bring over tamales on Christmas, her voice always cheerful, her porch lined with blooming flowers. But now the flowers were wilted, drooping under the sun, and the porch felt brittle, as if the heat had stolen its life. I knocked softly. The sound of shuffling feet echoed inside. Then the door creaked open just enough for me to see her eyes. They darted nervously as if someone might be watching. When she recognized me, she pulled the door wider, but not all the way. "Mia," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I wondered if you'd come." Her hands clutched the door frame so tightly her knuckles turned white. She motioned me closer, her eyes flicking toward Lily's house. "I shouldn't be talking to you. They said not to." My stomach nodded. "Mrs. Ramirez, please, I need to know what you saw." She swallowed hard, the lines on her face deepening as fear weighed them down. "I saw blood, Mia. That night, I looked out my window. Your father was on the porch shouting. Then I saw Ben push him hard. He stumbled, hit the steps. Lily," her voice broke, her eyes filling with tears. "Lily stood there and told me if I said a word, I'd regret it. She said she could ruin me." Her words cut like a knife, sharper than I expected. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. "They threatened you?" She nodded, her hands shaking. "I've lived next to them for 30 years, but that night I locked my door and turned off my lights. I was scared, Mia, scared of what they'd do if they knew I saw." I felt the heat of the sun pounding on my back, but inside I was cold, colder than I had ever been. Pieces were coming together now. Dad's bruises, his silence, Ben's voicemail, and now this. My chest burned with rage. "Thank you for telling me," I said, my voice low but steady. "You did the right thing." She shook her head quickly, her eyes darting around again. "Don't tell them I spoke to you. Please, Mia. Promise me." I placed my hand over hers, her skin thin and trembling. "I promise." When I walked back to my car, the heat hit me like a wall, but all I could feel was the fire building inside. I slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and pulled the box into my lap. My fingers shook as I worked the lock with a small file I'd found in Dad's desk. It finally gave way with a metallic snap, and the lid creaked open. Inside were folded papers, yellowed with time but carefully kept. I spread them across the passenger seat, my breath catching as I read. Deeds, transfers, legal documents all bearing Dad's signature, but not freely. Scrawled notes in the margins told a darker story, agreed under pressure. Lily insisted this would save the business. Ben said I'd lose everything if I didn't sign. Each page was proof that Lily had coerced him, not out of care, but out of desperation to cover her own debts. She had wrapped her hands around everything he owned, squeezing until he gave in. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, my rage burning hotter than the Texas sun baking the asphalt outside. They had stolen from him, manipulated him, broken him, and he was still covering for them. My chest rose and fell with sharp breaths. I thought about Mrs. Ramirez, her voice trembling as she begged me not to tell. Her fear wasn't just about that night. It was about what Lily might do next. Who else had she silenced? How many other neighbors, friends, or employees had been threatened into keeping quiet? The thought chilled me. Lily wasn't just ruthless. She was desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. I gathered the papers, folding them back into the box. My reflection stared back at me in the rearview mirror, eyes dark, jaw tight, no trace of hesitation left. The fight wasn't just about Dad anymore. It was about exposing Lily for who she really was, before she could bury anyone else under her lies. My hand brushed the phone in my pocket, the one that had buzzed with threats before. If someone was watching me, if they knew I had this box now, then the danger had only just begun. But I didn't care. I started the engine, gravel crunching under the tires as I pulled away from Mrs. Ramirez's porch. The papers sat heavy beside me, but so did my resolve. I whispered to myself, steady and cold, "This ends with the truth." By the time I reached the motel, the next step was already clear. If Dad wouldn't speak, and if Lily had silenced the neighbors, then I needed something undeniable, something she couldn't twist. Dad's laptop. Whatever was hidden there, emails, documents, recordings, I was going to find it. And when I did, Lily wouldn't be able to hide behind her threats anymore. The motel room felt even smaller that night, like the walls were inching closer with every breath I took. The air conditioner rattled on the window ledge, pushing out weak, recycled air that smelled faintly of dust and rust. The flickering light above cast shadows that jittered across the ceiling, like they too were restless. On the wobbly desk, Dad's old laptop waited. The metal casing was dented, the surface scratched, as if time itself had carved its secrets into it. I drew a slow breath, the kind that catches in your throat before something dangerous, and pressed the power button. The screen flickered, a faint blue glow spilling across my face. For a terrifying moment, I thought it wouldn't even boot. The machine groaned, the fan whirred and coughed, and dust escaped into the air. Then the desktop appeared, cluttered with old folders, their names half erased, some nonsensical. I scrolled carefully, the cursor dragging like it was wading through mud. Bills, tax forms, scans of letters I remembered from years ago. Nothing unusual, until my eyes locked on a folder buried deep inside a subfolder labeled Utilities. Utilities. It looked ordinary enough, but one file sat there, different. Camera 4. My pulse quickened. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the trackpad. Then I clicked. The screen went black, then grainy video appeared. The living room. Our living room. The angle was high, like a corner camera, hidden just out of sight. The sound crackled faintly, muffled but clear enough. For a moment, the frame was empty. The buzz of the motel AC merged with the faint hum on screen, an eerie harmony that made my stomach twist. Then Ben appeared, pacing the room with his phone clutched tight. His voice was sharp, bitter. "Where's the money, Harold? You can't just sit on it." My father's voice followed, small but firm. "It's not yours, Ben. It was for—" He didn't finish. Ben shoved him hard, sending him stumbling into the armchair. His frail arms flailed, trying to steady himself, but before he could, Ben's hand cracked across his face. The sound wasn't deafening, but it tore through me like glass. I gasped aloud, the bile rising in my throat. My hand shook as I gripped the desk edge, nails digging into the wood. And then Lily walked in, calm, composed. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, deliberate, cruel. She didn't rush, didn't shout. She only stood there watching. Her lips curved into that smug smile I knew too well, the one she wore at Mom's funeral, the one that said she had already won. "He's nothing to us now, Ben," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Just let him rot." Her laugh followed, soft but chilling, echoing through the speakers. Then she turned and left, heels clicking like punctuation marks on Dad's erasure. I slapped a hand over my mouth, my body trembling. I had imagined her cruelty, suspected it, but hearing those words, seeing her smirk, it felt like a knife had been driven into me. I paused the video, the frozen frame of Lily's sneer burning into my eyes. Her words weren't just cruel, I whispered, my voice hoarse. They erased him, like they erased me. I should have stopped there, but something in the corner of the screen caught my eye. A faint reflection in the glass cabinet. Movement. A figure, small, holding something up, a phone. I squinted, heart pounding harder, then realization hit. Sophie, my niece. It wasn't Dad who had hidden the camera. It was Sophie. She had been the one recording, silent and steady, her phone catching everything they thought they'd buried. Shock swept through me in waves. For so long I thought she was neutral, too quiet to be trusted, caught in the middle of her parents' shadows. But here she was, the secret witness, the one who dared to keep a record when no one else would. The screen blurred as tears welled in my eyes. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to hit play again. Ben's rage filled the room, Lily's dismissal cut like a blade. Sophie's reflection remained steady, unwavering. The truth was all here. Proof. I grabbed my phone, fumbling to open my cloud account. My fingers shook so badly I nearly dropped it, but I pressed on, dragging the file over and starting the upload. The progress bar inched forward, agonizingly slow. Each percentage felt like an hour. My pulse hammered in my ears. Paranoia crept into the edges of my mind. What if Lily knew? What if Ben burst through this door before the upload was complete? What if Sophie herself was in danger? I stared at the screen, frozen, not even breathing, until finally the bar filled. Upload complete. My lungs gave out in a single shuddering exhale. The file was safe now, out of their reach, out of their control. I closed the laptop with a snap, the room plunging back into dim light. The AC rattled, the neon motel sign buzzed faintly outside. But inside I felt a new steadiness rising through the disgust, through the shock. Sophie had chosen. She had risked everything to give me the truth. And with her proof, I wasn't just fighting shadows anymore. I had a weapon sharp enough to cut through their lies. I leaned back in the chair, my reflection faint in the darkened laptop screen, eyes rimmed red, jaw tight, hands still trembling but steady enough to carry this forward. "You won't erase us again," I whispered into the room, my voice firmer this time. The bed creaked as I finally lay down, exhaustion pulling at me, but one thought anchored me in place. Sophie's quiet act of defiance had changed everything. Tomorrow, I wasn't just going to confront Lily. I was going to drag her truth into the light, and this time she wouldn't laugh her way out. The Dallas courthouse loomed over me like a slab of stone, its pale walls catching the late morning sun and glaring down as if daring me to step inside. My stomach churned as I climbed the steps, clutching the folder of documents I'd gathered. Dad's coerced transfers, the papers from the locked box, the uploaded video stored safely in the cloud. Every breath felt heavy, each step an echo of the choices that had dragged me here. Inside, the air was cool but suffocating, humming with fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly above rows of polished wooden benches. The smell of old varnish mixed with paper and perfume, an odd combination that felt too formal for the storm we were about to unleash. I sat at the front, the social worker friend who had helped me file for temporary guardianship beside me, her steady presence a lifeline. Across the aisle, Lily sat with her lawyer, her posture flawless, her dress sharp, her smile stretched so tight it looked carved. Ben leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes darting like a cornered animal, and between them, the one person they both wanted to control, my father. I stood when called, walking to the front with my hands trembling against the folder I carried. The sound of reporters scribbling in the back row whispered through the room like a swarm of insects. Cameras clicked occasionally, their lenses hungry. I cleared my throat, forcing my voice steady. "Your Honor," I began, sliding the documents onto the bench. "I am requesting temporary guardianship of my father, Harold Grant. These papers show the systematic coercion he has endured at the hands of my sister Lily and her husband Ben. Transfers of property, accounts, all forced under pressure." Lily's lawyer objected, of course, his words smooth and practiced. "Exaggerations, misinterpretations. My client has always acted in her father's best interest." But Lily's glare across the room told another story. She wanted to burn me alive with her eyes, as if sheer hatred could silence me. I didn't flinch. Then the judge called for my father. Dad rose slowly, his body trembling, the weight of every bruise and every silence heavy in his movements. He shuffled forward, gripping the stand like it was the only thing holding him upright. For a moment he looked small, too small for this fight, too worn down. My chest ached, ready to carry the burden for him if he faltered. Then he spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "I thought pain meant love," he said, his eyes flicking toward Lily, then Ben. "But not anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the reporters stopped their pens mid-scratch. I gripped the edge of the table, my throat tight. His words weren't dramatic, weren't loud, but they cut deeper than any evidence I could have presented. They split the room in two, between the lie we had all been living and the truth he had finally chosen to say aloud. I caught Lily's face twist, the mask cracking. She hissed something to her lawyer, but the damage was done. Dad had spoken, and for the first time he hadn't defended her. The judge nodded, reviewing the papers, asking questions. When the will from the locked box was presented, my breath stopped. The document revealed a detail I hadn't known, a separate account, a secret account Dad had hidden away, not for Lily, but for me. Funds tucked aside, untouched, a quiet acknowledgement I had never expected. I swallowed hard, emotion tangling in my chest. After years of being overlooked, after a lifetime of watching Lily bask in the spotlight, here was proof that somewhere, deep down, Dad had thought of me. The session adjourned temporarily, tension buzzing in the air like static. I stepped outside into the marble hallway, pressing my back against the cool wall, trying to steady myself. Relief mingled with unease. I had won a step, but Lily's fury was building, a storm waiting to break. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an unknown number. For a moment I thought it was another threat. My fingers shook as I answered. A low voice crackled through the line, distorted, anonymous. "You've only seen part of it. There are more files, more recordings. Keep digging. You're not alone." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, heart hammering. More files? Who was helping me? Was it Sophie reaching out in secret? Or someone else entirely? Someone who had been watching just as closely? The mystery pressed down even harder than the victory. Every answer led to another question. Every truth pulled me deeper into shadows I hadn't expected. But one thing was clear. The fight wasn't over. I slid my phone back into my pocket, exhaling slowly. His quiet voice cut through years of lies like a blade, I whispered to myself, repeating the truth I had just heard in court. Hope swelled in me, fragile but undeniable. Still, I couldn't ignore the tightening knot in my stomach. If someone was helping me, who were they? And if they could see so much, how long before Lily found them, or silenced them too? As I stepped back into the courtroom, the fluorescent lights flickering above, I braced myself. I had allies I couldn't name, evidence I hadn't seen, and an enemy whose rage I could already feel rising like a tide. Hope and dread walked beside me into that room, and I knew Lily wouldn't let this go. Not now, not ever. The motel room felt like a cave, lit only by the harsh glow of my phone screen. The AC rattled in the corner, coughing out lukewarm air that did nothing to calm the storm building inside me. My thumb hovered over the glass as I scrolled, each new post slicing deeper. Lily's face filled the screen again and again. Flawless makeup, polished smile, her words sharpened into weapons. My sister Mia is exploiting our father's illness for her own gain. She abandoned him for years and now she's twisting his story. Some people only come back when they smell money. Each line burned hotter than the last. Photos of Dad appeared alongside her captions, cropped, staged, framed so that I looked like the villain hovering near his bed. The comment sections erupted with noise, some defending her, some doubting, but all of it loud, relentless. It felt like I was drowning in her narrative. After all the bruises I'd seen, after Mrs. Ramirez's trembling confession, after the hidden camera, she was still winning the crowd. She had always been the golden child, the one people believed without question, and now she was twisting that spotlight to blind everyone to the truth. I sat there, my chest aching, wondering if anyone would ever see Lily for who she really was. Then my phone buzzed again, another notification. But this one wasn't from her, it was Sophie. The thumbnail was raw, no filters, no staged smiles. Just Sophie, her hair pulled back messily, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. My breath caught as I tapped it. The video began, shaky, almost hesitant. The camera wasn't on her at first. Instead, it was dark, the audio filling the silence. Ben's voice boomed through the speaker. "He's a burden. Kick him out." The sound was so vicious, so undeniable, it knocked the breath from me. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, my pulse thudding. Then the caption appeared in white text across the screen. "This is what they did to my grandfather. I'm done with their lies." Sophie's face appeared at the end, steady now, her voice clear, unwavering despite the fear in her eyes. "I'm done with their lies." I froze, staring at her. Relief, shock, and pride surged all at once, leaving me breathless. Sophie, the quiet one, the one I thought was trapped in the middle, had chosen. She wasn't just recording anymore. She had stepped into the fire, publicly siding with me. Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled through the comments exploding beneath her video. Thousands of strangers had joined in, voices rising in unison. How could they treat their father this way? "Stay strong, Mia. We believe you. Protect Sophie. Protect Harold." I pressed a trembling hand against my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. The truth was spreading. Lily's control over the story was cracking. But the moment of relief shattered when my phone buzzed again. A text from another blocked number. "Shut it down or you'll regret it." The words glared back at me, blunt and cold. My throat tightened. I scanned the room, the thin motel curtains fluttering from the AC's breath. Outside, the Dallas skyline glowed under the night, neon signs flickering, headlights streaking across damp asphalt. The city pulsed, alive, but in that instant it felt like eyes were everywhere. I gripped the phone tighter, my palms sweating. If they had hurt Dad, if they had silenced neighbors with threats, what would they do now that Sophie had gone public? I replayed her video, letting her voice steady me. "I'm done with their lies." It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't teenage defiance. It was bravery. It was defiance sharpened into truth. It was a lifeline in a storm, not just for me, but for anyone who had ever been smothered under someone else's lies. My tears spilled over as I whispered into the empty room. "You're braver than all of us, Sophie." The threats were real. The danger was close, but so was the truth. And now the world was watching. I stood and walked to the window, pressing my hand against the cool glass. My reflection looked back at me, tired, eyes swollen from sleepless nights, but no longer hollow. Sophie's courage had lit something inside me, a fire I couldn't put out. I sat back on the bed and pulled the folder of evidence into my lap. The papers rustled under my fingertips, proof I would carry into the courtroom tomorrow. I slid them carefully into my bag, my movements deliberate, reverent, like I was preparing for battle. I caught my reflection again in the black glass of the phone screen. For the first time in years, I didn't just see the girl who ran from Texas. I saw someone who could fight, someone who had to. Relief and fear pulsed together in my chest, two truths beating at once. Sophie was with me. The community was behind us, but the anonymous threats reminded me that Lily's reach was longer, sharper, and more desperate than ever. As I lay back on the bed, the city's glow seeping through the curtains, I repeated Sophie's words to myself like a prayer, like a vow. I'm done with their lies. And tomorrow, in that courtroom, Lily would see that the world was too. The Dallas courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. Every bench was full. Neighbors craning their necks, reporters with pens poised, strangers who had only known me through headlines now watching like spectators at a spectacle. The air was heavy with the smell of varnished wood, perfume, and too many bodies pressed into too small a space. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, but sunlight sliced in through tall windows, cutting sharp angles across the floor. The bailiff called for order, and the hum of whispers died down. My heartbeat filled the silence, pounding so loudly it seemed impossible no one else could hear it. I rose, folder clutched in my hands, the papers inside crisp and unyielding. Every page, every recording I carried was more than evidence. It was years of bruises, silences, and betrayals boiled down to ink and sound. Dad sat beside me at the front table, his hands trembling in his lap. When I glanced over, he gave me a fragile smile, his eyes shining with both fear and trust. I gave him the smallest nod, a promise that I wouldn't back down. Across from us, Lily sat ramrod straight in her navy suit, posture perfect, expression controlled. But her eyes betrayed her. They darted, sharp and restless, the way they used to when she was cornered as a child. Ben slouched beside her, jaw clenched, his hand tapping a rapid rhythm on the table, as though daring me to meet his gaze. I didn't. The judge lifted his gavel, then gestured for me to begin. My throat was tight, but when I spoke, my voice carried. "Your Honor," I began, laying the will in front of him. "These documents and recordings show a clear pattern of coercion and abuse against my father, Harold Grant. My sister, Lily, and her husband, Ben, manipulated him into signing over property and bank accounts, stripping him of both dignity and security." The judge adjusted his glasses, nodding for me to continue. I slid the will closer to him, my fingertips grazing the paper. This was found locked away, hidden. It reveals a separate account set aside by my father, not for Lily but for me, proof that he never intended for her to hold the control she claimed. I reached for the laptop, already cued to the damning file. The courtroom fell so still that the faint click of the spacebar echoed. The screen lit up, and the audio poured out. Ben's voice snapped through the speakers like a whip. "He's a burden. Kick him out." Gasps swept the gallery, a few heads shaking in disbelief. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling frantically. My father closed his eyes, his body rigid beside me. Then Lily's voice filled the room, her smirk frozen on screen. "He's nothing to us now, Ben. Just let him rot." The words hung like smoke. For a moment no one moved, and then the whispers began, low, urgent, spreading like wildfire. That was when Lily snapped. She shot to her feet, the chair screeching across the floor. Her voice cracked as she screamed, the composure she had clung to unraveling in front of everyone. "You're tearing apart what we built on his pain." Her fingers stabbed the air at me, her face twisted with rage. "Do you even understand? Everything we have, everything came from sacrifices I made. You don't know what it took." Her lawyer hissed at her to sit, tugging at her sleeve, but she yanked away, glaring at me as though her fury alone could break me. The judge banged the gavel. "Order! Order in this courtroom!" The noise ebbed, but the tension remained, thick and suffocating. I rose again, my voice calm, though adrenaline coursed through me like fire. "Your Honor, what my sister calls sacrifice was nothing more than exploitation. Families shouldn't be built on pain, and no one's dignity should be the cost of someone else's empire." The judge's gaze swept over the evidence, then lingered on Dad. He sat quietly, shoulders hunched but head lifted just enough. His eyes glistened, and for the first time in years he looked unafraid to be seen. After a long pause, the judge spoke. "The court grants permanent guardianship of Harold Grant to his daughter Mia Grant. Furthermore, a restraining order will be placed against Lily Grant and Ben Harper, effective immediately." The words rang through me, each one striking like a bell. My knees nearly buckled, but Dad's hand reached for mine, his grip weak but resolute. I squeezed back, feeling decades of silence and favoritism and wounds compress into that single moment of unity. Across the aisle, Lily collapsed back into her chair. Her face was pale, her lips pressed so tightly they had lost color, but her eyes, Her burning, unrelenting eyes remained locked on me. There was no more mask, no pretense, only hatred. A hatred so sharp it cut deeper than any word she had screamed. The gavel struck again. "This hearing is concluded." Chairs scraped, voices rose, and the room began to empty. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashed, questions were thrown into the air, but it all blurred into static. I moved slowly, deliberately, guiding Dad to his feet. Step by step, hand in hand, we walked toward the tall doors and the slice of daylight waiting beyond them. The air outside hit like a rush of freedom, bright, sharp, filled with the noise of the city. The cameras followed, but I kept my chin high, every movement a declaration. We had survived this. Still, even as relief coursed through me, a question gnawed at the back of my mind. Who was the anonymous caller? Who had whispered about more files, unseen evidence waiting in the shadows? Winning didn't erase the scars. It only gave us space to begin healing. But scars remain, and shadows don't vanish just because the gavel falls. Dad's voice broke through my thoughts, quiet but steady as his fingers tightened around mine. "We'll get through this, Mia." I nodded, though my eyes stayed fixed ahead. Behind us, Lily's scream still echoed faintly, not in sound, but in memory. Triumph burned bright in my chest, but so did the sting of family broken beyond repair. Still, I walked forward, stronger, determined, knowing this was not just an ending, but the fragile beginning of something new. The house is small, just a modest rental tucked on the edge of Dallas, but it feels more like home than the mansion Lily once lorded over. The walls carry no ghosts, no framed awards meant to remind me I was less, no echoes of arguments over who was worth more in Dad's eyes. Here, the only sounds are gentle ones, the kettle whistling faintly on the stove, Sophie's pencil scratching across a sketchpad at the kitchen table, and Dad's quiet breathing as he shuffles in from the hallway, a folded note clutched in his hand. He sets it down in front of me. His fingers linger on the paper for just a second longer than necessary, trembling, hesitant, as though the weight of the words inside could still crush him. I smooth it open. The handwriting is uneven, shaky, but each letter has been pressed with intention. "You saved me from the desert twice." The words blur for a moment, my throat tightening. My eyes drift to him, his face older, his body frailer, but his eyes clearer than I've seen them in years. He doesn't speak, but he doesn't need to. That note is his confession, his apology, and his gratitude all at once. I press the paper against my chest. "Twice," I whisper back, my voice breaking. Once when I pulled him off that scorching highway, and again when I stood in that courtroom to pull him free of Lily's grip. He nods, a faint smile tugging at his mouth, and the silence between us is heavy but healing. Sophie looks up from her sketchbook, her eyes flicking between us. "What did he write?" she asks softly. I slide the note toward her. She reads it, her lips pressing together. Then she sketches something quick. 2 figures standing beneath a sun, one leaning on the other, both casting long shadows that don't quite touch but lean closer as they stretch. She doesn't explain it, but she doesn't have to. Later that afternoon, we step out into the backyard. It's small, patchy with dirt, but the air carries the warmth of late Texas sun, golden light spilling over the fences. I set a pot on the ground, soil staining my fingertips, the earthy smell grounding me. Sophie crouches beside me, holding a small cactus carefully in her hands, its spine sharp, its body plump with life. "Are you sure about this one?" she teases. "It fights back." "That's exactly why," I answer. My hands scoop the soil around the roots, firm but gentle. Dad watches from a lawn chair, a blanket around his shoulders, his eyes half closed but content, as if he's seeing something grow for the first time in years. We plant more, different kinds, some tall and thin, others short and round, each one armed with spines but carrying hidden reservoirs of water, survival written into their very being. I look at Sophie, her hair falling into her face as she pats down the soil, and I realize she's just like them, sharp enough to protect herself, resilient enough to endure what should have broken her. "They'll outlast us," I say. She glances up at me. "Good. Maybe they'll remember us." Her words hang in the air, soft and steady. Around us, the neighborhood hums with life. Children playing in a nearby yard, the distant bark of a dog, the faint tune of an ice cream truck drifting closer and then fading away. Normal sounds, healing sounds. That night, I sit at the same kitchen table where Sophie was sketching earlier. The house is quiet now, Dad already asleep in his room, Sophie curled on the couch with a blanket and her phone. I open my laptop, fingers hovering over the keys. Instead of case files or court documents, it's a new project. Remote work with a nonprofit for elder protection, a cause I never thought I'd dedicate myself to until the truth of my own family demanded it. I pause, staring at the blinking cursor, and let the thought settle. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about rebuilding. Some families are built on names, on bloodlines, on the illusion of legacy. Ours is built on scars and second chances, on the raw courage of speaking truth when silence seemed safer. And maybe that makes us stronger than we ever were before. I close the laptop, step out into the yard again. The cacti sit in rows, catching the last glow of dusk, their spines casting tiny shadows in the golden light. They are stubborn, unyielding, yet alive, symbols of everything we've endured. I breathe deeply, the air cooling as the sun dips below the horizon. For the first time in years, peace doesn't feel like a dream. It feels possible. I turn toward you, the listener, the watcher, the one who's followed me through this storm. My voice softens, not as a lawyer, not as a daughter still tangled in old wounds, but simply as someone who survived betrayal. Ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? I ask, letting the question linger like the evening air. Drop your story in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, not for me, but because every story told breaks the silence someone else is trapped in. The cicadas buzz faintly in the distance. Sophie steps outside, brushing sleep from her eyes. She stands next to me, looking out at the spiny little garden we've made. Dad's note is still in my pocket, folded close to my heart. I smile, the kind of smile that comes not from victory but from beginning again. Tomorrow will bring its own battles, but tonight, under this Texas dusk, I am ready. Some families are built on names, ours is built on starting over.